Please stand by and wait for my cue. Hello.
Good evening. Today's date is June 23rd, 2021. This is a meeting of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. We do have all members of the commission, with exception to Michael Wills, here in attendance at the city's community design studio at 7506 East Indian School Road. Tonight's meeting has members in attendance of Jonathan Budwig, William James, Luis Lamb, Carol Moraldi, Rachel Putman, and Bridget Schwartz-Manock. City staff moderators in attendance include myself, Adam Yaron as the commission liaison, Brandon McMahon, associate planner, Taylor Reynolds, project coordination liaison, Tim Reister with a board member of Phoenix Rising Soccer Club, which will be an agenda item later on this evening, and Dennis Roller, SUSD director of building services. Chair Putman, if you'd like to call the meeting to order. Chair Putman, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you could make sure your mic's on. Thank you.
So it's 5:01 Wednesday, June 23rd. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. Our first, do we have any public comment at this time?
Chair Putman, we don't have any public comment.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 1, approve the draft summary meeting minutes for our meeting that was on May 26, 2021. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review those. On that note, can we go ahead and get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Chair Putman, if I may, just a point of order, if you could ask for a formal roll call, please.
Okay. My apologies. I wasn't sure if that was already kind of done. So we will go ahead and get a roll call for this meeting, please.
Yes, Commissioner Budwig.
Present, thank you.
Vice Chair James.
Present, thank you.
Commissioner Lamb.
Present.
Commissioner Moraldi.
Present, thank you.
Chair Putman.
Present, thank you.
And Commissioner Schwartz-Manock.
Present, thank you.
Commissioner Wills is absent.
Okay, so on that note, we'll go ahead and move to agenda item number 1, approve the draft summary meeting minutes for our meeting May 26, 2021. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review those. And may I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner James.
Thank you. And Brandon, can we get a vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Budwig.
Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb.
Yes.
Commissioner Moraldi.
Yes.
Chair Putman.
Yes, thank you.
And Commissioner Schwartz-Manock.
Yes.
Okay, so our meeting minutes have been approved for our regular meeting, May 26, 2021. Agenda item number 2 is community outreach, Phoenix Rising Youth Soccer Complex.
Thank you, Chair Putman, members of the commission. Brandon, if you would, please, next slide. We'll be confirming receipt of public comments submitted on this agenda item. This is an information and discussion item only. Next slide, please. With regard to tonight's item, we do not have any public comment listed, and we do have in attendance Tim Reister. He's a board member with the Phoenix Rising Youth Soccer Club, and he's here to present and solicit additional community outreach. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and especially to see you all in person. This is a great joy after the last year and a half of all these Zoom meetings that we've all been attending. I am here to advocate on behalf of the kids of this community. We have an amazing growing number of kids with an interest in playing outdoor sports. And the outdoor sport I'm involved with is soccer. And we see kids participating in soccer in the hundreds of thousands now. It's become a sport that is preferred by a number of parents because of the cardiovascular advantages. Kids do so much running that with enough running, it helps them focus and do their homework and do their schoolwork and sit in class and pay attention. It also, that level of physical activity also helps kids lean toward better nutrition. When the body's starving healthier foods, they start craving healthier foods. And that's the great advantages we see, especially scholastically for kids. The problem that we have, especially in the Scottsdale area, is a lack of field space to serve the demand. And that's why we at Phoenix Rising FC work so closely with the city of Scottsdale on your previous and most recent bond election to build more fields. We worked very, very closely with your city colleagues. We were delighted to see that pass. And as a result, that's going to help a lot of kids. That will solve part of the problem. As you may know, though, those fields that are being built are also going to be used for parking. And that has been a real challenge for us over the years. The best fields we have for soccer in the city of Scottsdale are used for parking for the Open. And we know the Open has tremendous economic benefits to the city, and we're greatly in support of that. But it's really hard when the weather's that beautiful to have to shut down a lot of our soccer programs because of lack of field space for the kids. And even these new fields, many of these new fields that are being built for parking purposes. And we know because in meeting with the city of Scottsdale and offering our resources to help with some of those fields, we were told that if we did so, we wouldn't even have, even if we put our own money in those fields as Phoenix Rising, we wouldn't have access to those during the time of the Open and some of those other major events that partner with the city. And we said, you know, that's not really for us. If we're going to invest millions of dollars from our professional soccer club and our youth charity organization, we really need fields that are available to the kids 12 months out of the year. And much to the city of Scottsdale's credit, they worked very hard to find possible solutions for us. And I'm so grateful they introduced us to Dennis Roller and his team at Scottsdale Unified School District. They have been amazing partners. We still don't have an end product together, but I'll tell you what, if you can get an A for effort, they certainly deserve it because they've worked very, very hard to try to help us achieve finding land that's currently not in use for any purpose that could be full-time fields for kids. Specifically, they identified land and they proposed to us redeveloping land at 68th Street in Oak. And this was first recommended to Phoenix Rising by a city of Scottsdale senior leaders in the Parks and Recreational Program. We at Phoenix Rising provided an unsolicited proposal to Dennis and the Scottsdale Unified School District. The procurement law allows us to do that. Without an RFP, we can come in and just provide an unsolicited proposal, and then they legally have the right to entertain that proposal. They didn't have any other proposals for the property, so it allowed us to advance discussions. Over the last period of time, and we have a summary here that I'll try to go through quickly, but I thought it'd be easier just to kind of talk and give you the lay of the land up front. We've been going through the process of meeting with neighbors and determining interest in the community to allow us to proceed in developing this property. Let's go ahead and take a look on your screen and you'll see a proposed finished product. That's currently vacant land. And I think if we go to the next slide, the next slide just tells you a little about Phoenix Rising FC. Do you guys know who we are? Then I won't go through a whole lot on, but so Phoenix Rising FC is the highest level professional soccer team in the state of Arizona. We began operations in 2016. Our first season was in 2017. And we've been fortunate to really grow in the state and to have great success. The last 4 seasons, we've won more games than the other 35 teams throughout all of the US and Canada. So we're really developing a competitive, respectful style of business and play. And trying to teach people how to be winners and how to be winners with participation for everybody. Let's go to the next slide, if we may. We wanted, through Phoenix Rising FC, the pro organization, to have more of an impact on kids. So we started talking to youth clubs throughout the state of Arizona, and we came to an agreement several years ago with what you probably knew as Scottsdale Blackhawks. And some of your kids, being from Scottsdale, your kids may have played for the Scottsdale Blackhawks in the past. The Scottsdale Blackhawks legally were incorporated in the early 1980s as Scottsdale Arcadia Soccer Club, and their legal name is still that today. Because they're a nonprofit, we couldn't just go in and buy them, but we could come in and create a joint venture agreement where the Phoenix Rising FC Pro organization became 50% of their board, 50% of their votes, brought them more capital, and created a much larger scholarship program. We're very proud that we fund about 600 kids a year who could not afford to play soccer otherwise without our charitable involvement into the organization. And you'd be surprised in our community how many kids are impacted to where, and put yourself in the position of a child. If you're outgrowing your shoes and your family can't afford to get you new shoes, I mean, that's enough of a barrier to make you so embarrassed that you won't come back to practice. And by having a fund that we can discreetly work with those families and help those children, we provide an environment where as they're growing and developing, we can keep them clothed and outfitted and with the resources and the travel budget and the coaching fees so these kids can play. That's why we're involved in this. We want to make sure the financial barriers and the playing barriers, like having grass, are solved in this community. This youth soccer organization that now is doing business as Phoenix Rising FC Youth Soccer is serving thousands of kids. And they're based right here in your community in Scottsdale. And I serve on their board as well as on the board for Phoenix Rising FC's pro organization. This is a nonprofit. Everything I'm talking to you about today is a nonprofit activity. The pro organization makes no money from anything we do on the youth side. The only possibility for us to earn any type of money is if they happen to go to a game and buy a ticket or buy, a hot dog or something at a game. But there's no monies from kids' fees that go to the pro organization. It's all nonprofit, and any proceeds that are left at the end of the year in the youth organization go into the charitable fund to help us fund more kids who can't afford it the next year. Next slide, please. You've probably seen the kids from our organization around the community. In addition to just playing soccer, we feel it's important for them to learn how a team can impact a community off the field. So our kids all participate in food banks, in charitable activities. They help support other nonprofits. They recently did a lot of work in the No Place for Hate movement. We just honored a number of them at our pro game at halftime for being one of the first youth organizations in the United States that were awarded a No Place for Hate designation. It was a big deal, and it was all the kids. We had one staff member working with them, but these kids are very impressive, and they will drive to these future solutions. As you've seen with the Black Lives Matters movement, I mean, these kids really, they're growing up in a culture and an environment of inclusivity and diversity, and they're pushing us as adults to help them do that, and we're very proud of them. Next slide, please. Okay, here you see a photo. This is the current land that we're talking about today. This is 68th Street in Oak, and this is in South Scottsdale. And this used to be the home of the former TONALEA Elementary School. And due to a number of reasons, which Dennis, I'm sure, can answer much better than I, the Scottsdale Unified School District chose to build a larger school, a newer school, in a nearby but different location, and they removed the elementary school from this land. And this land has been fenced off and not in use, other than that it continues to cost the Scottsdale Unified School District money for maintenance. They have to mow it and water it and try to prevent it from becoming too much of a blight. The neighbors have no access to this. It's completely locked off from the community unless they were to go to the Scottsdale Unified School District and ask to rent it or something, which requires insurance. It's not easy to like have a birthday party there. I don't think anybody does. So our proposal was, hey, instead of this continuing to sit and be an unattractive corner, why don't we pay to completely revamp this location? And our proposal is to build 2 full-size soccer fields for kids, increase parking, and we're currently working with Jeff and the team in planning to determine how much parking is necessary so none of the parking spills onto the street. There are already 50 plus spaces that you see on the north side of the property, but we think that we'll need more than 50 spaces. We added another 50 plus on the south side in our plan that you're about to see. And Jeff and his crew advised us in a recent call that We really need to do a traffic study and determine how many, because we don't want any of the parking for this facility to end up on the neighborhood streets. And we agree with that. And we're willing to pay whatever we need to develop enough parking onto the site. We also felt that there are a lot of activities that would benefit that neighborhood that aren't directly related to soccer, like a safe place to walk your dog or a place to put your child or your grandchild on a swing. They don't have that in that neighborhood. So if you take a look at the next slide, you'll see our proposal, how to do what we want and also what that neighborhood could enjoy. You'll see 2 professional soccer fields. I say professional just because they're full size. These are 100% for the use of kids. And then the exterior, you see a landscape perimeter with an exercise path all the way around. And like you've seen in so many successful City of Scottsdale parks, we would have exercise stations around this exercise path. So people could do pull-ups and dips and push-ups and all kinds of activities for fitness. Our kids can use that as well. When they come as a part of their warm-up, we'll have them jog around the path and do exercises. And because soccer, you've got to work your upper body too, or you just get big, strong legs and you can get hurt up above. So it makes sense for us to do it, but we would have that available to the community and lit 24/7. The fields we would close off to make sure someone doesn't get in there and tear them out. The fields are really expensive to build. So the fields will have fenced. So those are used for soccer. The neighborhood can book those. And we've done a lot of discussions with the neighborhood about how we would have a designated administrator. So they could book birthday parties or a wedding reception or even their HOA meetings if they'd like. They could book them at that facility. The exterior, though, they wouldn't have to reserve. It's available to them anytime. In the northeast corner, so the very top of the screen, you'll see a long white roof. That's a playground for children. And there used to be one here when it was in an elementary school, but since that was locked off, people have, if you have a 3-year-old who wants to delightfully giggle on a swing, I mean, there's nowhere to do that. So this would provide those types of activities as well on the site. Next slide, please. So as a part of this process, we've conducted 5 planning meetings with the community. We've listed them here along with the dates. And we've listed below what we've learned from those neighbors. These are specifically the items that they've requested. And these are the items that Dennis and his staff and my staff have worked together to ensure we're incorporating into the location. Next slide. This shows how some of those items are incorporated. You can see the parking added to the south side of the facility here. You can see there's at the left side of that drawing toward the top, you'll see a small building. That's an existing building that was part of the TONALEA school. And it was preserved. It was the only building not taken down because the neighbors were very concerned about a mosaic tile piece of artwork that was done there that they really felt culturally was a part of their community. So Dennis and his staff saved that for them. It's currently locked and it's off limits. Our plan is to redevelop that building, preserving the mosaic, but making that a community room. We could use it for classroom instructions for the players. There are already bathrooms in it, so we would improve and enlarge in those bathrooms. But it's about a 3,000 square foot space where we could use it as a classroom, but the neighbors could use it for their events as well. Next slide, please. This just highlights the exercise path that we discussed. Next slide. This is a side view of the playground. And this is just some hypothetical ideas of what could be put there along with a swing set. There's like a little climbing. The architects are just starting to have fun and put ideas in front of the neighbors. But the neighbors will choose what types of playground equipment they would like there and we'll pay for it. Next slide. We've also talked a lot about lights. Lighting is important for us. If we can only use the fields until the sun goes down, it makes it very difficult during the most beneficial time of the year. So fortunately, there's a company that does a lot of work locally, and they've done a lot of work recently for the city of Scottsdale. They're called Musco Lighting. And they have done the lighting in your parks where it's amazing. You're pulling up and you wonder if the park's even open because you can't really see the lighting. Even in the parking area, there's extra lighting because the light from the field isn't even spraying in the parking areas. But as soon as you get on the field, it's like daytime. And it's because they're using this new LED technology that's directional, and it just shines where you want it on the grass. So we were showing this to the neighbors, and we gave them, as you'll see, a few locations where if they'd like, they could go look at some other parks that use this lighting. As you can imagine, neighbors who are concerned about the lighting don't want to believe what I say about it. So we're saying you don't have to. Go ahead and go look at some of these installations so you can see the lighting that we're proposing here. We've also, with that exercise path, put a buffer between anyone's backyard and the property. So it really makes sure that there's a barrier between the lighting on the fields and someone's backyard. So their backyard will not be illuminated by our activities. Next slide, please. At our last neighborhood meeting, Dennis and his staff conducted a vote. And they did it using technology so people wouldn't have to hand in a ballot. If someone was uncomfortable using their phone to vote, they were given a ballot and permitted to hand that in. And there were 232 votes cast by neighbors, and 60% were in favor of the project. 37% were not in favor. A little anecdotal feedback I'll share with you because I've received a lot of letters and emails and LinkedIn messages regarding this project. Generally, what we're seeing, retired neighbors who no longer have children are less interested in returning that site to one that has noise from kids laughing and playing. Even though they don't like the way it currently looks, they like that it's quiet. And so their concern is noise and activity there. The younger families are highly in favor and coming and advocating even at the meetings because they want their kids to have access to something like this that they can walk to and not have to drive to take them to events and activities all the time. What I try to share with the retired members of the community is that, home values, when you're looking at neighborhood turn, often when it's time to sell your home, you're competing against neighborhoods that may have more amenities. And although these may be amenities that you don't use, it certainly opens the field of interest in your real estate if there are amenities that appeal to more people than just people like yourself. Some aren't interested, in my opinion, with that. Others understand that that could be helpful to them and their estate. So this is where we stand today. We have not decided to move forward with the project. We're waiting for an appraisal to come back from Dennis and his organization. We have not yet seen the appraisal. We intend to pay fair market value rent for the property, but we also intend to invest several $1 million in the property. So we're waiting to see how the numbers work and how the final reception is. As you can imagine, when you're going to donate this much money for something that you're not going to own at the end of the period, if people really don't want you there, it's not attractive to us. If people will appreciate our contribution, it's more attractive to us. In the end, we're going to help the kids somewhere. And that's our commitment. And that's the end of my presentation today. And I'm so grateful you were willing to allow me to come in and tell you about it. I'm sure you've heard about it from some of the neighbors you represent. And Dennis is graciously here as well. And if you have any questions for him about the Scottsdale Unified School District's activities with this, I know he'd be happy to speak as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. Chair Putman, members of the commission, this was an item that was requested by Commissioner Lamb at our last meeting. And the purpose of this item was really just to help Phoenix Rising in their cause to encourage more community outreach. If there's any specific questions by Tim or his team that is here in attendance this evening, now would be the time to ask those questions.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Now that we're in person, I know we're all trying to figure out how to communicate with each other again in person, but Chair Putman, feel free to call on commissioners.
Sure. Commissioner Lamb, if you will.
I was just wondering, because at some of the meetings that I've been to, parents were concerned about the traffic with drop off and pickup. Can you go into that a little bit? And how many parking places are you going to allow for players, parents and grandparents and things like that?
So interestingly, the location already has a drop-off lane that was built for the school. So we could use the existing drop-off lane. And if you were to go by this site and look at it, that existing parking lot on the north side, you'll see it has a safety drop-off area where you can pull through and drop off your child at the gate without the child having to walk through an area where people may be pulling cars in and out. We're really attracted to that. It's true, some parents drop off their children at practice and go do other things while they're practicing, and then they come back and pick them up. Others like to sit and watch the practice. And they come and they park and they walk their kid in and they sit down with their homework from their job, and they sit and work while or they visit with the other parents from the team they're with, and they choose to stay. We currently have, and my numbers might be a couple spaces off, but right now I believe we have in the plan about 104 parking spaces when we include the new parking on the south side. I think there are about 50 spaces existing on the site on the north side. So we'd be adding about 54 more there. In our conversations with Jeff and the staff at the planning group for the city of Scottsdale, we're determining now if that's sufficient or if we need more. The way we came up with the 104 spaces as being maybe a good target is we looked at the number of players who are generally on a team. On a game day, how many players are there, how many coaches are there, and how many referees are there. And that number gave us a buffer of about 24 additional empty spaces. So if grandparents came, if more than one car per kid came, that we'd have extra spaces for those people. But we need to do a survey and get the real right answer to that. We're not ready to put a stake in the ground and say we're only going to do. We want to know how many for sure the experts think it will take and do that. The last thing we want to do is open this and be all excited and have a parking problem and have the neighbors upset at us. That's not where we want to be. Thank you.
Vice Chair James.
Hello, thank you. Interesting presentation. You mentioned that Phoenix Rising would be renting this land from Scottsdale Unified School District. Who sort of owns this? Who's responsible for, I don't know, maintenance and overseeing the operation of the land? Is Scottsdale Unified School District still involved in that or not? Or is this strictly a Phoenix Rising project?
I think the best answer to your question would be a combination of both Dennis and me. Would it be okay if Dennis joined into the conversation? Thank you. Do you want to start that, Dennis? And then I'll finish off with our commitment regarding maintenance and ongoing repair and oversight.
Dennis, if you want, you can sit at that empty table. That'd be fine. Just make sure your mic's on.
Thank you for having me. The answer would be that once the property is developed, Phoenix Rising will take responsibility for the property. Now, as the owner of the property, we always have oversight of the property. So if there was, because a lot of the neighbors had asked that question, well, what if Phoenix Rising isn't doing something or it's not being taken care of properly, or if trees get damaged and who's replacing them? So as the owner, we will always maintain the oversight of the property to make sure that it is being cared for. But Rising's commitment is that they will maintain the property, they will develop the property, and long-term, they will take care of it 100%.
I had a question. I have two actually. So I love this area. I like on Oak, there's bike lanes on both sides. I did not see any mention of bike lanes. I'm just wondering if they're going to stay, if they're not part of it because they're going to stay intact as they are today, or if you could expand on that. And then my second question, I thought it was interesting when you asked the neighbors who weren't, in favor of it, that they still don't like how it looks, but they weren't in favor. I'm just wondering what they would want there if not for this soccer field.
Thank you, Chair Putman. Putman.
Yes.
Chair Putman, thank you so much for your questions. The bike lanes, so that when it comes to the city streets, we're not involved in those decisions. Jeff and the planning group mentioned to us something that we weren't aware of, and that's that on 68th Street, there used to be an extra special lane to the side for buses. And buses would pull off the main traffic lane into a side lane and come in and enter an area for drop off there. That lane still exists. We didn't know what it was, so we didn't incorporate it into our plan. But Jeff and his team had shared with us that that's what that used to be. And perhaps there's something we could do in cooperation with the city to use that extra space for some additional parking. We haven't worked out those details of how to safely do that yet, but it was an idea they shared with us. I don't know or think that would in any way impact the bicycle lanes on Oak, because they were talking about 68th Street. To us, it's a great advantage to maintain the bike lanes because we want local kids to be able to bicycle to the park and participate in our recreational soccer programs. We don't have as much participation currently in our soccer programs from this particular community and the areas around it. And by having programs there that are very inexpensive, so our recreational programs are like $80 a season. And so kids, and they get a uniform for that, and they get coaching, and they're put on a team, and usually dads or uncles or older brothers help coach those teams. It's really it's a fun program, and the kids are pretty young. I mean, they're like 5, 6, up to 12, 13 years old. And that's a program that kids who are local can ride their bicycles to and participate several nights a week and on the weekend. So we would be greatly in favor of preserving all those bicycle lanes, and bicycling is very much a part of our focus on providing fitness to kids. Did you want to comment at all on the second part of the question?
Yes, so it was mentioned that 37% were not in favor, and they still felt like they didn't like how it looked now. So I'm just wondering if they had other ideas or proposals of what they wanted, if not for this.
That's a pretty hard question because there were a lot of folks that just didn't have any ideas. They were more opposed to noise, traffic, street parking, things like that. Of course, there's a number of people that would love to see a school back there. We just don't see the student numbers are going to get there anytime real soon. There were folks that have talked about selling the property. We're not going to do that. We think that we need to preserve that for Scottsdale School District's future if there is growth in that neighborhood. But I don't know that there was a clear message from any one person that it should become this rather than. I think it was just more opposed to certain elements, the parking, the street parking, the traffic, the lights, the noise. And you guys just finished, or is that in the city of Phoenix, that new baseball park out there off of McDowell?
That's City of Phoenix.
Yeah, if you drive by there, that new lighting is amazing. You drive down the street and you barely can tell that it's on. So that's the same kind of lighting they'll have here. But there were folks that because we had, and that slide went pretty quick, but we had several visioning committee meetings in which the neighbors, we had teachers, we had the school principal that participated, and we had some folks that actually changed gears. They were against it at first, and after more discussions and more understanding that Phoenix Rising was willing to come to the tables on their issues. There were folks that decided, well, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. So to really answer your question, I don't know that there was any one, well, we really would like it to be this instead.
Thank you. And I just had a follow-up question. I'm just curious if the issues were traffic and parking. If the school existed, there would be traffic and parking. I live right across the street from Coronado High School. I can't get out of my driveway between 7:30 and 8:30. And so to me, I feel like this is actually less traffic. And it's going to be times where people maybe aren't driving around because it's kind of in between the rush hour times that these things are taking place. I'm just wondering if, there was any kind of discussion, if it was a school again, did people not think there would be traffic and parking issues anymore? It just.
So Rose Law has a gentleman that I guess used to work for the city of Scottsdale in traffic, Mr. Basha. And he's talked a little bit about traffic with the group. Traffic studies necessary, but yeah, when you have 700 kids that go to the school, there's a good chance that 400 cars are going to that school each morning and each afternoon. So the traffic will be different. It'll be different in that it won't be as much. It'll be spread out at night in the early evenings into the 9 o'clock hour. Rather than at 7:30 and at 3:30. So the traffic will be different. And I think that was some of the opposition for the folks as their quiet neighborhood. Now we're going to have a little bit more traffic at night, but it is a little bit of traffic. It's not like there's 400 kids practicing at any one time. So it'll be traffic, but it'll be different.
Thank you. Vice Chair James.
Thank you, Vice Chair James. Does Scottsdale Unified School District have other unutilized areas that have been turned into playing fields?
None that are unutilized in playing fields. All of our schools right now, we either have intergovernmental agreements with the city of Scottsdale that they're using those fields for recreational programs. Cochise, Hohokam, a lot of our schools, they're using those fields, but we don't have anything that's not utilized as a school that's currently vacant and being used for something else.
So those fields that you've just described, are those fields that are commandeered for parking?
No, well, Hohokam's a good example. When that field is active, the soccer program that's there, not Phoenix Rising, they were all over the place, all over the neighborhood, all over the place. And now that we've rebuilt the school, we've got a lot more parking. We'll be opening that school in August, but we don't park cars on grass. That's not a general use of our fields.
I was talking about the discussion earlier that fields are being commandeered for things like the open, and
yeah,
that doesn't happen with
not on our
Scottsdale,
schools.
you know?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Budwig, please.
Yep, thank you. Tim, two questions and they kind of coincide. What would be the time of this project? Like, is there like a lease term that you guys are looking at? And is 2 soccer fields enough? If you guys want to build the program, build the awareness, is this a large enough site to do that in? Because you mentioned there could be more than 1 car per child in that buffer of 24 spaces or whatever it ends up being. Is it big enough, or are we trying to put it in a place that's available versus trying to find the place that really, is 4 or 5 fields more the size that you need? Just.
Yeah, thank you for your question. The location is wonderful because it's an empty space in Scottsdale. I mean, it's so hard to find any space that's available in Scottsdale. And that's why we're willing to sign a 20-year lease on the space. To us, if the Scottsdale Unified School District is willing to allow us to come in and develop the site, we'd like to amortize it over the longest period of time that's allowable. And the school district said that 20 years is the maximum amount of time they're able to enter this type of agreement. And as you can imagine, for our organization and our charitable organization, the kind of money it's going to take to do this is a lot of money. And we've been saving for a while to be able to do this. Ultimately, we need many more fields for the kids. We're fortunate to have other partners who are already helping us do that, but they're in different locations around the valley. We just completed a beautiful new soccer complex with a gorgeous new stadium for our pro organization down at Wild Horse Pass. And they're committed to building more youth soccer fields. But those will serve kids in the Ahwatukee and Chandler, and even kids from Mesa will be going there for games and things on the weekends. So we're looking around the valley for as many locations as we can, but these infill spots are great because by putting 2 fields at 68th and Oak, all the parents who've been going there who may live closer to that side of town will no longer be driving all the way up to North Scottsdale to go to practice every day or further. I mean, it's crazy the amount of driving people have to do to get their kids to practice. Some kids are some parents are driving 45 minutes or more one way just so their kids can participate in a physical activity. And this should really help solve part of that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have mentioned this, but I was just thinking about, it seems like the key issues that are remaining with the neighborhood are the traffic, which you could work on areas to mitigate, and lighting, which sounds like there's some technology, but the sound, that's a tricky one. I'm not really aware of anything you could possibly do other than maybe limit the time. Do you have a time limit where you are committing that everything shuts down like 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. at night? And is it 7 days a week that it would be available and running?
So we would use the facility every weekday for sure, Monday through Thursday. Often we don't train the kids on a Friday because they have games Saturday morning, and it's better to let their bodies rest. The older kids, we might do classroom instruction on Friday, game prep, where they can look at ideas on a whiteboard about how they're going to play the next day. But generally Monday through Thursday, the kids would be participating in activity between 3:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. And you're right. I mean, they'll hear kids laughing. And now what we have shared with the neighbors, because many of the neighbors, especially the older neighbors who aren't familiar with soccer, are imagining high school football when they were young, where there's a band and there's, stands and there's a loudspeaker. And what we've helped educate them is, in soccer, you're not allowed to have music on in practice or a game. It's not part of the game. There's no announcer telling people what's happening. You don't have that tackles by number 45. You don't have that. It's just quiet, and all you hear are the cheers of the parents and an occasional whistle from the referee. So it's much quieter than other types of sports. It's probably more like baseball, but you never hear a crack sound because, our ball is full of air. So it's a lot quieter than a baseball. But yeah, I think I'm hopeful that if this does come together, that the neighbors who were a little concerned are more pleasantly surprised once it's there. Thank you. Oh, you know what? May I say one more thing? I didn't properly answer your question regarding the weekends. I said Monday through Thursday. So there are games on weekends. And they usually occur from 8 o'clock in the morning until, right around dinner time. We usually don't go much later than that because families do things in the evenings and we want to be careful about that. But there are games on weekends. And one of the things we've heard, and I understand this concern from some of the neighbors, we will have more activity on the weekend than the elementary school used to have on the weekend. The elementary school they had fewer activities. They still had activities, but fewer than what we would have. We would program the site. Game days would be Saturdays and Sundays. Thank you.
If I could add as well, when you look at their design, their conceptual design now, they've created a buffer with that fitness route and some landscaping. So the fields themselves are not right up against the property line. There is an alley on two sides, on both the east side and the south side. But we wouldn't want the fields to be right up against that property line. So they've created a buffer with the landscaping, with the fitness track. So you're not gonna, there's some distance there. It's not like they're yelling right over their backyards.
Do we have any other questions? All right, thank you both for the presentation. It was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you for including us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, you as well.
All right, agenda item 3, the 2021 Spirit of Scottsdale Awards program. Brandon, please.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Putman, members of the commission. It's good seeing everyone. I am here tonight to bring forward to you the 2021 Spirit of Scottsdale program and the proposed timeline with that. This item is information, discussion, and possible action, and staff has not received any public comment on this item. So a quick overview of the program for some of the newer commissioners. This program focuses on recognizing neighborhood stewardship, how a person or place contributes to Scottsdale physically, aesthetically, and socially. It was added as a work item for the commission in 2015, focusing solely on those properties or persons within the McDowell Road corridor, having 3 categories back then, residential being single family or multifamily, non-residential being recognizing a commercial, and the Spirit of Scottsdale, which would be the individual or group. In 2017, the boundary was revised to include all of Southern Scottsdale. Also, after the 2018 program, the commission saw fit to only have it be the Spirit of Scottsdale Award and recognize an individual or organization. The 2019 program was scheduled to be heard in early 2020, but due to the unforeseen circumstances around COVID-19, that program was put on hold and was heard along the same timeline as the 2020 program. Both those programs award nominees were deliberated on at the January 2021 NAC meeting and were awarded prior to the March 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting. Also prior to the 2018 program commencement, the NAC re-envisioned the program to include all of Scottsdale while also narrowing the focus of what they would consider within the program to be those that had active years of service involvement in strengthening neighborhood identity, champion community dialogue to produce constructive recommendations or solutions that address the dynamic needs of the neighborhood, and also provide unique contributions of time, effort, skill, and or financial resources to a specific neighborhood. So on this slide, you can see that some of the tweaks and refining of the program over the years produced higher numbers of nominations. You can also see the decline in 2020. Obviously, there was some other pressing items for citizens, potentially more issues facing them. Much shorter nomination timeline was also in that year as well. So diving into the proposed 2021 program and its timeline, the award program and process will mimic that of years past, recognizing one business, organization, or one individual. Staff will also work with the Office of Communication to promote the program, utilize web, social, and print media. What we have done in the past was including it in the city's Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor posts, posts on the city's webpage, planning and zoning links, city volunteer, block watch, captain, Rotary, and Chamber of Commerce e-blasts, as well as included in the Scottsdale utility mailer. The form will also be found on the city's Spirit of Scottsdale Award webpage, and also which would go live as of tomorrow, as approved by the commission this evening, and would close December 31st. Those nominations would then be brought to the commission in January of 2022 to be deliberated on. And also the award winners would then be notified and awarded prior to a spring 2022 city council hearing. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments that the commission might have and open it to discussion and potential action. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Do we have any questions at this time? Okay, can we call a motion to approve the 2021 recommendation? Is that the action we're needing at this point?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So moved.
Commissioner James, move to approve.
Okay, do we have a second to approve?
Commissioner Maraldi, I will approve.
Okay, can we take a vote, please, Brandon?
Yes. Commissioner Budwig,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
Commissioner Maraldi,
Yes.
Chair Putman,
Yes, thank you.
and Commissioner Schwartzman.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Agenda item number 4, the Neighborhood Advisory Commission bylaw update. Adam, please.
Thank you, Chair Putman, members of the commission. This is item 4 of tonight's agenda, the Neighborhood Advisory Commission bylaws update. We'll be confirming receipt of public comment submitted on this agenda item, as well as having this item as an information discussion and possible action item of the commission. This evening, we have not received any public comment. And to bring the commission current with this item, the commission bylaws are reviewed on an annual basis. And the items that have been recommended for addition into the amended bylaws that have been legislatively presented within your agenda packets are intended to bring consistency to the bylaws with other city boards and commissions relating to quorum provisions, tie votes, and conflict of interest, so as to maintain the ability for the commission to perform business of the commission. Those legislatively amended items were presented in your packet, and that concludes staff's presentation. If there's any questions of the commission, I'd be happy to answer those questions now.
Thank you, Adam. Vice Chair James, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair James. Reading through these, I was noticing that there's a definition of quorum, which is greater than 50% of the committee members, or at least 4 people, which would suggest that the number of people at a minimum in the commission is 6. I don't see really anywhere in the bylaws a definition of the number of people on the commission. Is that usual for commissions? And as nearly as I can see, there would be nothing to prevent in the bylaws an infinite number of members on the commission. Is that the way these things are written, or is that something that should be dealt with?
Commissioner James, members of the commission, if you would just stand by for one moment. I'd like to just take a look at the enabling ordinance of the commission, just to ensure that that's where I believe the reference is made as to numbers of commissioners. Commissioner James, members of the commission, section 2-322 of the city code designates and states that the Neighborhood Advisory Commission shall consist of 7 members, each of whom shall be appointed by the city council.
Thank you. Is there a reason that that isn't in the bylaws?
I don't, Commissioner James, Chair Putman, members of the commission, I don't have a specific answer. If you'd like that addition noted so as to be consistent with the enabling ordinance, we can make that addition and bring those current with that stipulation if you'd like.
Thank you.
If I could, one more item. Vice Chair James, rather, Chair and Chair Putman, the heading of the bylaws also makes reference in that manner to Scottsdale Revised Code 2-323, which makes that reference. But if you want it to be explicit, again, we can state it, but it does make that dovetail connection in the heading of the bylaws.
This is Vice Chair James. Thank you for that. And I wonder if that's the case. And at least in my opinion, having something as basic as the number of people on the commission only be known by reference to a statute that isn't here is somewhat confusing. I find. I don't know if other people feel that, and I'm not pushing strongly one way or the other, but I just sort of like to bring up the point.
Thank you, Commissioner James.
Any other questions? So on this note, we'll go ahead and take a vote if we want to pass the bylaws for the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. Do we have a motion to approve the bylaws? Yes.
Vice Chair James, I move to approve the bylaws with the addition of the number of members on the commission.
Okay. Do we have a second to approve the bylaws with the members of the commission noted as part of the bylaws?
Commissioner Lamb, I second.
Thank you. Brandon, can we take a vote to approve the bylaws with addition of the commission members added to?
Yes. Commissioner Budwig,
Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair James,
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
Commissioner Maraldi,
Yes, thank you.
Chair Putman,
Yes, thank you.
and Commissioner Schwartz-Mannon.
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item 5, identification of future agenda items. Adam, please.
Thank you, Chair Putman, members of the commission. This isn't a standing item on our agenda, as the Neighborhood Advisory Commission may suggest items that they wish to be placed on a future agenda. Per Arizona state law, the commission cannot discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item suggested as a future agenda item unless the specific item is properly noticed for the commission discussion and action. I might note that we still do have a standing item made at the last commission by Commissioner Budwig, which requested a presentation regarding how outreach of programs is progressing for residents and citizens, such as Operation Fix It and the Tool Lending Center. This is still yet planned to be on a future agenda of the commission, but just wanted to note of that standing item.
Thank you. So at this time, do we have any other items that we wish to add? All right, agenda item number 6, staff updates. Adam, please.
Thank you, Chair Putman, members of the commission. This is staff updates. The next meeting of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission will be on Wednesday, September 22nd. We've got a summer break ahead of us, and so I hope we have a different summer this summer than last summer for everybody. Regarding the Neighborhood Enhancement Grant Program and awarded projects for fiscal year 2020 and 21, I did check with Jody Pierce this morning related to the approved projects for the Thomas Road Streetscape and Indian Bend Road. Those funds will be implemented before the month's end, as the city's fiscal year ends at the end of June. But just wanted to make the commission aware of that program timing. We will bring back in the coming cycle an update with pictures of what those projects have evolved and changed to, but just wanted to get you all current with business of the commission. That concludes staff updates. If there's any additional questions or comments, I'd be happy to hear those now.
Do we have any questions regarding staff updates? Okay, at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn this evening's Neighborhood Advisory Commission meeting for June 23rd, 2021?
Commissioner Lamb, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Maraldi, I will second that.
Thank you. Brandon, if we could take a vote, please.
Yes, Commissioner Budwig,
Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair James,
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
Commissioner Maraldi,
Yes, thank you.
Chair Putman,
Yes, thank you.
and Commissioner Schwartz-Mannock.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you in September.